Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You are listening to the live version at this moment in time of the Doc Owen Show. We are really glad to have you. Glad you could be with us. This is a big celebration show for us tonight, actually. If you pay any attention whatsoever, you'll see on every one of our titles Y4.XX, 01, 02. The Y4 is for year 4, and tonight's show is Y4.51, which is the last show for our 4th year in existence. We were started on 9/11/2013, so we will be beyond that date on the next show, and we'll go to Y5.01. You might ask yourself why 51 and not 52 if it's the end of the year. I don't remember the exact date. We'll probably find it during the conversation tonight, but there was 1 week this year when I believe Uncle Bocce was gone, and I just flat was not up to it. It was just overcome. You know, I wasn't feeling well, and you know that old adage about the show must go on. It just could not carry the day.
Everybody needs a break.
It was just it just got to me. So we only did 51 shows this year. However, well, we'll get into it here in a minute. I don't want to go too much past our normal routine. I am joined in our absolutely fabulous, decked out, reconstructed, totally updated infrastructure Hilltop Studios by
I'm a surefire
and
Uncle Bocce.
See what I mean? Okay, we are ready to rock and roll. We've got our notes. We're going to do basically, after we do our traditional beginning, we are all over the social media as Doc Owen Show, DOCOWENSHOW. Facebook, Twitter's a great way to follow us. We are out there on a bunch of different stuff, all as that, but those are the two that we play with. And we have a growing hub of information and connectivity, the DocOwenShow.com blog, DOCOWENSHOW.com. You should go there and find us, as well as what we're about to review tonight and previous years of our podcasts are available via our brand spanking free apps for both iPhone and Android devices. And guess what they're called?
the Doc Owen Show.
Wow. We saved so much money on branding. Anyway, so we start in a traditional manner. We have an inspirational quote from Ms. Surefire, a moment in history from our show historian, Uncle Bocce, and then I will follow that up with some sort of a leadership quote or so, and we will be off and running. Ms. Surefire, take it away.
And as usual, the quote comes from brainyquote.com. That's BRAINY quote.com. And tonight's quote comes from a gentleman back in the day, was an American historian. He was related to one of the well-known political families, Henry Adams.
Ah,
The
John
Adams family.
Yes, not the Adams Family that was a TV show.
Oh, I was
Right.
about to ask.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
okay.
It Thing and all them. No.
Yeah, the Adamses were far and wide. They were a big family.
Yeah. So, his quote is, "A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops." And that's very true.
Isn't that? That is true.
I like it. I really like it.
I know you would. It's true.
I like it. Uncle Bocce,
Yes, sir. Here I am.
anything of note?
Yeah, we got a couple things here. Did you ever wonder where the United States got the name Uncle Sam?
Wonder, wonder, who, No, okay.
That's a little different.
That's, now you know I
Well,
don't
well,
say
yeah.
it.
Well, today in 1813, they officially gave the name Uncle Sam, and the story behind it is there was this butcher whose name was Sam Wilson.
Okay.
And this butcher used to provide the army with barrels, big barrels of beef. And on the barrels, he would stamp U.S.
Okay, and they...
So all the military, they started calling under Sam's Grub, Uncle Sam's Grub.
Interesting.
And the name kind of stuck, and some other people later came along and created the actual image of Uncle Sam, and it stuck.
Nice.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Good job.
Yeah. And then in 1977,
Whoa, wait a minute.
you know who was president?
I thought we had a rule.
What?
1977 is not history.
To some people it is.
You?
To me?
Yeah.
Well, that's not. Well, yeah, it's still history.
Okay.
Yesterday was history.
Aye.
That's true.
Okay.
Well, anyway.
1977.
Yeah. President Carter.
Yes.
Remember him?
Yeah. Speaking of gas shortages.
He, oh, yes, that's right. He agreed to transfer the Panama Canal to Panama.
Yep.
That was the year.
I was flabbergasted at that.
I was too.
As a
I
fellow
was not-
Naval Academy person.
I was angry.
You know, he was a Naval Academy graduate. The strategic implications of the Panama Canal Zone just absolutely cannot be underestimated.
That's right. Absolutely. You're right.
I'm still don't get that.
I don't either.
Okay. What else you got? Is that it?
That's it for today.
Well, at least for today's in history.
Yeah.
You got more for us in a minute, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Leadership quote. This is about vision, and it's from my friends at the Optimist Club. Okay? It was written by a fellow by the name of Henry David Thoreau, who was a U.S. philosopher and yada, yada, yada. The main thing that Thoreau wrote that I remember is a treatise, we will call it, or a little pamphlet on civil disobedience. In other words, your American duty to push back on unjust laws and unjust activities of the government. Here's what he said. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you've imagined.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like
that's,
that.
Get it?
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Just
You've got to have some kind of an imagination.
do it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Go there. Okay. So we've already told you what tonight's show is about. We're going to do a bit of reminiscing. And before Uncle Bocce gives us a little trip down history lane with our presidential series, I want to point out the fact that we did 51 one-hour shows. Okay, we in addition at the beginning of this year, we were very aggressive and thought we had one of our networks that we're on was encouraging us to do more shows per week. So we had two little spin-offs. One of them called Campus Connection that was totally focused on college-type environments and activities and news that came out of the colleges. And we started one called Saint Cities, which was a weekly show about sanctuary city activities, and Saint stood for a sanctuary assembled in nature's tradition, and it still does. And Saint Cities lives barely kind of out there, but it's out there. So we did 14 Saint City shows. So we did a total of 70 shows last year.
Wow.
All right, that's 70 one-hour broadcasts. And I'm figuring we put about 5 hours per show individually, right, into each one. So that's 350 hours behind the scenes that goes on to produce 50 hours, 70 hours. 70 times 5 is 350, right? Times 3.
Wow.
So that's over 1,000 hours that this little crew has invested in delivering truth to youth, trying to do the right thing, do the right amount of research, not just, we don't just wing it. And it also should give you an appreciation for the big boys, the Rush Limbaughs that we tease occasionally about, just getting started, and the Michael Savages, and even the Dennis Pragers, et cetera. These guys do 3 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Right.
And they have an entire staff that does those hours of background research, information, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a full-time job. I mean, I just don't want you to. We take this quite seriously. There's an awful lot of other people in what is referred to as the alternate media, the internet, the non-mainstream media, non-cable news, et cetera, who take a lot of pride in what we do, and we take a lot of sincere authorship in terms of delivering facts, and that does not come easily.
No, it doesn't.
We have to dig it out. So, Uncle Bocce, thank you very much for doing what you do for the show, because I know you put a lot of work into digging up this history.
It's
right?
a lot of fun. I love it.
I know that you lived most of it, but
Right, I did.
and Ima, you too. Ima's the one that we have interviews. We'll go through some of them, and Miss Surefire is the one that makes sure that we have somebody interesting to talk to from time to time on current events as well as things that we just need to know. So thank you very much.
Sure thing.
Good job. We appreciate it. So, have that no further advoise or whatever it said.
And you too. You do a lot too.
Oh, absolutely.
You the man.
I'm just on-air talent.
You
I
the man.
Just
stand up here and direct the choir. The choir does all the singing.
Nah, you do too.
Thank you, Uncle Bocce.
Yes, sir.
Who are we talking about tonight?
We're still talking about Thomas Jefferson.
Well,
And-
he's a deserved character in our history.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he is.
For those that this may be their first time tuning in, this is our second week on Jefferson. We
Yes.
spent 2 weeks on each president, and we are walking through. We started with George Washington, so we're now on president number 3.
That's correct. Yeah,
all
and
yours.
yes, Thomas Jefferson. We left off last week just before we started talking about his cabinet. He maintained the 5 cabinet positions that John Adams. Remember, John Adams added the Department of Navy. So the one significant is the Secretary of State, who was James Madison, one of our founders as well, and the next president. He had some court appointments, which, as they are now, are extremely important for posterity. He named 3 new Supreme Court justices. Their names.
Refresh our memory. How many were there at the time?
There were 5.
There were only
I believe.
5, I think.
Yeah, I think there were
Okay.
5. Eventually, it came to 6.
Right.
But we'll get into that.
Right.
There were the circuit courts. He named 7, and
Right.
the district courts,
Right.
which is the lower courts. He nominated 8 of those people. Now, we won't go into their names either.
So
because
even
it takes too much time.
just for audience. So even back in the day, way back in the day, they established this process.
Absolutely.
Of the original court was close to home, and then you moved up and you moved up, and each way along the way you had the right and the opportunity to appeal the decision of the court, and it worked its way all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, because you remember the Constitution doesn't really allow for courts beyond the Supreme Court. That's the only thing that's in the Constitution, the Supreme Court. So it was up to Congress to set up
So
the
the
circuit
Supreme
and
Court
district.
wasn't flooded. They
Right.
set up this process of
There you go.
Right.
Yes. So Jefferson had some diplomatic missions to Europe. And he had 10 consular posts, to different countries. Back then, when Jefferson was the head of the State Department, their total budget was $56,000. That's not even 1 minute now. And during his tenure
It's
of
my
Secretary of
understanding,
State,
though, they squandered a large amount of that on leather gloves.
on leather gloves.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
just so you know.
Okay. And as Secretary of State, he carried George Washington's neutrality position, trying to keep the United States at that time neutral from any foreign entanglements. Okay, now let's look at his domestic policy. Well, first of all, he was sworn in by Chief Justice John Marshall at the new Capitol in Washington, D.C. His inaugural address, one of the two speeches that he gave, he was not a great speaker. Brilliant man, brilliant on ideas and all of that, but he was not a very good speaker. But
He was a good writer, but he
was a yes, yeah.
That was the way he preferred to express himself.
Exactly. And he has a lot of writings.
Yep.
So what he tried to do was strike a note of reconciliation because there was so much animosity between the Adams period and this one. So he wanted to reconcile. He also said equal and exact justice to all men, minority rights, freedom of speech, religion, and press. So he emphasized that in his inaugural. Free democratic government was the strongest government on earth. And upon assuming office, he first confronted an 83 million, that's with an M, $83 million national debt.
What?
And he hated it. He was
83 mil. That was
83
huge.
million. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, and he
Because
did not,
of the war?
He did not like that.
Was it war debt?
probably, yeah, it was mostly war debt because
Okay.
remember the federal government assumed all the debts of the colonies. Okay, so that was his inaugural address. Another big issue was, and it still is, the National Bank. This
Yeah.
was a big deal for Alexander Hamilton.
Right.
He was the guy who set that up.
Right.
Well, he and Jefferson were bitter enemies on this particular topic. So what Jefferson did, he started dismantling the whole Federalist position on the National Bank because he just did not agree. And then another big thing that happened was the Louisiana Purchase.
Right.
1/3 added another half to the country. That's how large it was.
How large Louisiana was.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. You know, west of the Mississippi. So it was 800,000 square miles, and they agreed with Napoleon if they also took New Orleans that they would pay $15 million for it. So they did. They got all this land and paid $15 million for it.
Makes you really appreciate those beignets a little more, doesn't it?
Oh yes, I love those. I was just thinking about them on the way
They
here.
weren't cheap to come by those.
No, they weren't.
Jefferson loved them.
And then October 20th, 1803, the Senate ratified the Purchase Treaty. So it was done through the proper channels.
Go figure.
Another thing that came about in Jefferson's administration was the Lewis and Clark expedition. Remember, they explored the Mississippi. They went all the way up into the Northwest, making maps and finding out, making friends with the peoples and all of that kind of thing. And there were other expeditions, too. There was an expedition on the
Lewis and
Wachita.
Clark did kind of well with the Indians, too, didn't
Yes,
they?
yes.
I mean, they didn't create issues.
Exactly. No, they did not.
They were good
they
servants to the land. And I mean, they thought
exactly. They were very friendly relations with...
I know you're really entrenched in this, and what I'm doing is reviewing what I learned in junior high to make sure I still got it.
That's good.
Okay.
The Wachita River, which goes through Arkansas, and the Red River, which we are familiar with as the northern border of Texas.
Yep.
And there was also another Rocky Mountain expedition.
Okay.
So those were the things under Jefferson. American Indian policies. Under Jefferson, he refuted the contemporary notion that Indians were an inferior people.
Ooh.
A good insight into Jefferson's mind and his thinking. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So he maintained that they had an equal body in the mind of people of European descent. Okay? He believed that assimilation was best for American Indians. Second best was removal to the West. That's what he was
He
thinking.
preferred assimilation.
He preferred assimilation.
Unable to do that,
Then
go
to
find your
move
own
them.
space.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Okay, in Georgia, He stipulated that the state would release its legal claims for land to its west. If you look at an old colonial map, there Georgia extends all the way to the Mississippi, so to South Carolina, North Carolina.
Right.
Yeah, which part
They were
of it
really
became
odd shapes,
Tennessee.
but yeah.
Tennessee. Right.
Right.
Okay. So that facilitated the policy of Western expansion. He adopted an assimilation policy towards American Indians, as we said. There was also the Burr conspiracy. I remember Aaron Burr.
Sort of.
Yeah, he was in general disrepute. Excuse me. And after 1804, because he was a horrible vice president, and Jefferson, just didn't like him at all. They didn't get along at all. So he never got a chance to get on the second term ballot. And he eventually was tried for conspiracy, but he, in the end, was let go.
Right.
But he still continued doing bad things.
Aaron Burr.
Yes. Jefferson eliminated the whiskey excise tax and other taxes. Okay. He closed unnecessary offices, cutting useless establishments and expenses. He shrank the Navy. After Adams had gone through all that trouble to build the Navy and make it strong,
Right.
Jefferson said, we don't need it. It's peacetime.
Well, he had an $83 million debt he wanted to get rid of.
On that note, okay,
You're welcome.
after his 2 terms, that $83 million was brought down to 57. So he did a good job in at least attacking the national debt.
And he had it pointed in the right direction.
And
for
he
the
had
next
it
guy.
in the right direction, exactly. The Alien and Sedition Act was still an issue. Jefferson pardoned most of those who were imprisoned under the law, under Adams.
Right.
Okay? The Judiciary Act of 1801, they repealed and removed most of Adams' midnight judges. Remember, he tried to pack the court
Yeah.
with all the judges? Yeah, well, Jefferson started getting that down. Military Peace Establishment Act. Actually, that was the act in 1802 that created our U.S. Military Academy, West Point. So that was under Jefferson's watch. And there was a famous decision in the court.
What year was that?
That was 1802, March 16th.
Okay.
And then there was Marbury versus Madison, which had to do with judicial review.
Yeah.
I don't have a position on that yet. I think that it's not really a good thing. The idea is that the Supreme Court has to review any legislation that comes out of the Congress before the bill can be passed. And
But finish the thought for
Yeah.
for folks that aren't constantly in tune. The Supreme Court has to review motions or laws, as they're called, once they're passed.
oh yes, absolutely.
Of
yes.
everything that comes out of Congress.
Yes.
Before it can be, supposedly, I thought, before it can be sent to the president to be signed as being constitutional. Is that a true statement?
That is not.
Okay.
I don't believe that's how it worked. Now, guys out there, if I'm wrong,
I wonder if
let me
that's
know.
how it used to work. I'd like to know, too.
Yeah. Well, we'll check on that.
Now,
I'm not
what they
positive-
do
I'm
is
not
they
positive.
pass the law.
Well,
They pass the law, and then if somebody objects
Mm-hmm.
or decides to not follow the law based on the fact that it's not constitutional, then that fight has to go on until it reaches the Supreme Court and the decision is made.
Correct.
I thought they did it earlier in the process, or back in the day. But I'd like to know.
yeah, that would interfere with co-equal,
Okay.
but it does fit in with checks and balances. So I'm not positive about that.
We need to know.
Okay,
Yep.
we'll get to that. Okay, in his foreign policy, there was the first Barbary War. Remember in the Mediterranean, North Africa, the Barbary coast, they were pirates, and they would, attack our ships and take all that stuff. They passed a Non-Importation Act, which said that we will not import anything from Britain. He also passed the Embargo Act, which was a horrible act because it says we will not trade with anyone. We're just going to stick to ourselves. And that was the lowest point of his foreign policy, and it really destroyed the New England economy and
Right.
most of the other.
Right.
He had a lot of writings. I'm not going to go through the list. He did speak about Jesus. Are we good on time?
No,
No, we're over.
we're getting close.
Okay, and
Well, it's Thomas Jefferson. You want to take up some more of Jefferson next week? You want to do 3 weeks on TJ?
well, actually, we could because I really would like to go through some of his.
I think it's
some
worth-
of his writings.
I think it's worthy.
Yeah,
Yep.
to understand the
Rather
man's
than rush
mind.
through it.
Yeah.
Let's-
Okay. No, that's fine.
that
I'll
work
be
for
able
you?
to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So then let's stop there and continue on with the rest of our show.
Make a mark
Appreciate-
where you are.
Yeah.
And tell the people who you are.
Appreciate you guys listening. And my name, or the person I can represent, is Uncle Bachi, UNCLEBACI at DocOwenShow.com. I love hearing from you folks.
Yeah. Question him.
Yep.
Thank you, Uncle Bot.
You know, and we just threw some questions out there that we may have, so let's
Exactly.
have some answers.
Exactly.
And the reason we kind of stuck to our time is because we have, as we told you, a full year's worth of activity that we would kind of like to go over from year one. So Uncle Bachi and Ms. Surefire both have, copies of the shows. And in going back and looking at the names, there's an awful lot of them that you kind of have to also look at the date to figure out what we were talking about. We were very good about, which is fine, because the nature of radio is it's in the moment, we were very good about always including the name of a guest that we had on, and just to give you a rundown, we had a fella our local district attorney Nico LaHood was on with us probably 8 or 10 times over the course of the year, if not more. We try to have a sit down with him at least once a month and talk about current events, simply because he is a very, very personable and bright young attorney in a tough position as a criminal district attorney. And he happens to be a Democrat. He's a Democrat in the old John F. Kennedy Democrat way of a rather conservative Democrat. But we enjoy the conversations. And actually, we don't talk politics. We talk law, we talk current events,
Issues, yeah.
and we talk issues.
Everything.
And I get Nico's run and gun response of what are the legal ramifications here? What are we really looking at? And try to stay away from the emotion of it. So they're usually pretty good conversations. I'm telling you all that, so you'll see Nico LaHood on the marquee from time to time this coming year as well, and you need to take advantage of listening to those. We had a fellow on by the name of Joe Gizzardi, who happened to be an authority on sanctuary cities in California. And Joe was really interesting. He's been in the anti-illegal immigration, anti-sanctuary city fight for, if I remember correctly, like 10 or 15 years.
Yeah,
a really
long
long time. And he was quite authoritative and quite informative. We enjoyed that. We had a guy on by the name of David Jackson who written a book called Life in the Second Half. And that means basically when you're given a second chance for one reason or another, either physically or mentally, or you just decide, well, I got to change my direction. He talked about, how to do that and the advantages of doing that, right?
Yes, and we've all done that too.
Oh,
I know I have
have.
especially.
I have.
Yeah.
We-
I have too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know all three of us have.
Yeah.
And I would encourage the audience to do that if you have not. And there's a third and a fourth, and you can change as often as necessary.
Till you get it right.
We also had a fellow on that we really, really like, Pastor Greg Locke.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Pastor Greg is a real firebrand out of Tennessee. He recently drove down from Tennessee to Houston with a rented truck full of goods and $50,000 that his little
help the
and a
people.
very, very, very small congregation and small church in Tennessee, but a huge internet presence. You should go look up Global Vision Bible Church on YouTube. I think you will really enjoy it if you missed his shows with us. Who else do we have on? Oh, we had Andres Holiday, who is a real bright young man with a good future, and we met him at the Texas A&M San Antonio campus when he was student body president, and he has now started a local chamber of commerce kind of thing, and he's doing very well with it. Do you remember the lady's name that we had on about the high school? That
The tech school?
Yeah, it's kind of it's a tech school. It was a brand new high school, brand new concept.
Yes, yes.
I can see her face because we had her picture on with us. She's an Aggie, a PhD from A&M, and really doing some wonderful things with a whole new kind of a school concept here in town, a private school.
Yeah.
Who else do we have on?
Publius Hilda.
Oh,
P8.
you turned the
forget
page
PH.
before I did. We had the formidable.
Well, you're asking.
I know, Ms. Publius Hulda. Ms. Hulda is absolutely, without a doubt, the WFA. If you're new to the show, that means world's foremost authority on the Constitution of the United States and its original intent. So we've had several conversations with her, and I think this is when it all started kicking off. Then we had the lady on about the College Fix. That's the name of her blog that she puts out, is the College Fix. And it talked about, as a matter of fact, it's back in the news today. Betsy DeVos, the current Secretary of Education, is rewriting the books on how college campuses deal with rape accusations from female students. And the College Fix, this lady was telling us about it. It was really unbelievable. But basically, right as it was yesterday, before Betsy DeVos said something, it was the young man was considered guilty and had to prove himself innocent if he was charged with raping one of the co-ed students.
An interesting
Completely
thought
upside
on her.
down. Yes, sir.
Interesting thought on DeVos.
Yes.
She is the daughter-in-law, daughter-in-law of the man who started, one of the men who started Amway. Have you ever heard of Amway?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where that name comes from.
Oh, wow.
Her husband's father was one of the
Founder of
founders.
Amway.
Yeah, just thought I'd let you
That's
know.
interesting.
That's where her
Yeah.
money comes from.
I bet she's got a huge downline.
Oh, I'm sure she does.
Okay. I never understood that concept, but a lot of people do apparently. We also had a fellow on by the name of John Whitehead, who runs the Rutherford Institute, and he has also written a book called Battlefield America. That is one book that we talked about on a couple of shows, and it's the one book that, at least recently, I have had more and more people tell me they decided to read it after hearing the show, and it really got their attention. And it's about the overpowering growth of the police state in America and the military armament that the police state is using without, I'll say this, without proper controls. Okay? And then most recently, we had Deputy Chief Jimenez on, who is the Deputy Chief of Bexar County, Deputy Sheriff of Bexar County, and he had spent 30 years with DHS, with ICE, worked his way all the way up, et cetera, and then retired and then went to work for the Sheriff's Department. And we talked to him about illegal immigration, and which we've also talked to Nico about. So we make sure we get complete clarification on exactly what the drill is. Bachi, out of all the shows, I mean, do those help refresh your memory?
Oh, yes.
Which one of them?
Yes.
I mean, which one of them stands out? Any of them?
Yes, the one with Nico, or the several of them with Nico LaHood.
Okay.
But this last one that you just talked about,
Yeah.
that was really a
Jimenez.
great show too. Yes.
Yeah, that was
a
was
great
very
show. Go back
informative.
and listen to it.
You can find if you'll download the app. Here's the best way to do this. if you have a smartphone, all right, let's start from the beginning. If you don't have a smartphone, get off my show. No, not really. Get a smartphone and either an Apple or an Android device, or get your child or your grandchild to download the Doc Owen Show app. It is free in the respective store. All you got to do is download it. You'll then have access to all of these shows that we're referencing, as well as be able to listen live. But you can go back into the history and pick a few. You can start them. You can listen to 10 minutes at a time. You can fast forward. You can slow down. You can do. You're in complete, absolute control of what you're listening to, and there's a lot of good. We try to deliver a lot of good information. Mm-hmm. Did I say a lot?
Yeah, you said a lot.
Oh, okay.
You said a lot.
Okay. Not just occasionally it's opinion, occasionally it's a rant, occasionally something hits my hot button.
Yeah.
But I still try to respond with fact, although on occasion it's more vehemently than other occasions. It's just because it's something that's near and dear to me, and that I feel like I know a lot about, and I really don't feel like discussing it, but here we go. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And, but predominantly what's in all these shows that you'll have access to is fact, information, data, not bull sugar, not somebody trying to sell you their opinion.
Right.
Right?
As
Right.
fact.
Not biased.
Sell it to you as fact, is that like Uncle Bocce said. I mean, and then what we do, we connect dots. We try to connect dots on, when the rest of the world is telling you, watch what I got going on my left hand, so they can pick your pocket with their right hand.
There you go.
You
They're
know,
really good at that.
Absolutely, they are. So we try to call that out when we smell a rat. When we smell something going on. No, wait a minute. Here's some dots that you need to connect. So you too can do that if you'll go back and listen to some of these shows. What else struck your fancy besides the interviews with Nico? You can't even tell from the titles, can you? It's tough unless you look at the date. We went through the election.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, this starts in September
That's right.
of 2016, so
Yeah.
think where we were. We reported on the election, not every week, not for a full hour every week. We'd hit hot buttons, but we'd really try to call attention to things that were going on in the election cycle that we saw on television that might have occurred back in Uncle Bocce's day, or back in what Uncle Bocce reports on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's more
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
Another real good one was Y4.53.
Yeah.
Nuclear war.
Yeah.
Question mark. Are you nuts? That was a good show.
Well, it was a good show.
Yeah.
Because
They're all good shows,
We
but-
questioned things.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was when it started bubbling up with North Korea. I made a statement last night at a group we were in, and it's something that has come to my mind about over the last week or so. Do you know this theory, called suicide by police, suicide by cop?
yeah.
When these young people, they're committing suicide. They know they're committing suicide.
Yeah, and they're doing it on purpose,
to either
yeah.
pull a gun or pull something that looks like a gun, and they're doing it intentionally for whatever sick reason. I swear to you that's what I see in Kim Jong-un with North Korea. He's got nowhere else to go.
That's a good analogy. I
He's
didn't
got
think of it
nowhere
that
else
way.
to go. He's done. He's toast. It's over.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way that for him
Throw
to
him into the water.
win or come out and save face or anything. I just don't. He's long lost that
That's right.
capability. So
He's
now
gonna-
what he's doing is the international version
Yeah.
of suicide by cop.
There you go.
He's doing suicide for his old nation
Yeah.
because he can't save face.
Yeah. I can see him riding on one of his nuclear head missiles.
Like that movie?
He's riding. Yeah, he's riding on it. I want to get you guys.
Yeah. What was the name of that movie? Where
Oh yeah.
It better be a
Dr.
sturdy
Strangelove.
Dr. Strangelove.
Dr. Strange. Yeah.
It better be a sturdy missile.
Yeah.
How about that?
So anyway, so that one got you, that when that first bubbled up about nuclear war, right?
Yeah, I thought that was a good show.
It was a good show, but we analyzed it. We didn't.
No,
It wasn't.
we didn't just blabbermouth it. We went into it.
What else? Ms. Surefire? Which one do you like?
I think just the two major, like themes I see here within the shows is one, just to talk about the importance and how bad sanctuary cities are.
Yeah.
Make people aware of that. That's
We
very
hit that
important.
topic
Because
a lot.
Yes,
the
we did.
mainstream media makes it sound like, it's just peaches and cream, and it's not,
Right.
So that's one. And then the other is to get people to realize how good DJT is doing for
Yep.
the country and the people.
Oof.
And here again, trying to fight against the mainstream media that makes
I-
them like, some kind of moron.
We're up
Right.
against a bunch of zombies.
So
Those of us
for
who
me,
I
that's- yeah.
got it. I mean that you're absolutely correct. And the sanctuary cities, because it has so much impact on so many other things, it winds up on our radar. Plus the fact we're in San Antonio, Texas, but it winds up on our radar simply because it impacts so many other things. It impacts gun control. It is all about illegal immigration.
Crime.
It's
in
all
the
about
city.
crime. It's all about tax increases. It's all, we did all of this research, and we'd have one show that focused on the crime and another show that focused on tax and another show that focused on et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, sanctuary city. That's why we tried to do Saint Cities. And it wasn't that it wasn't a good idea or a good direction to go. We just didn't have the time and
That's
the
right.
and the
Yeah.
resources to dedicate that many hours a week to broadcasting. We couldn't handle it. So, well, that good observation. Yeah, it shows up quite often, just because of how it touches everything.
That's right.
And you mentioned about the support for DJT. I bet if we went back in our shows to the election cycle, at least I think on a personal basis, we weren't the first to jump on board with Donald J. Trump.
Correct.
Yeah.
None of us were.
No, that's true.
No, we were
We-
holdouts.
We did it reluctantly. Reluctantly.
Yes, reluctantly.
But as the saying goes, when he won the nomination for the Republican Party, as a matter of fact, a little bit before that, when we realized he was going to, we began to investigate. We began to figure out and try to deliver to the audience what our interpretation was, what we thought made this guy tick. Right?
Right.
I remember having conversations about him being a businessman, not a politician. That's a whole different
Yeah.
mindset,
That's true.
That's-
which continues till this day, I might add. Excuse me. He's getting better at the politics. And now we're all trying to figure out how good is he at the politics.
Exactly.
Right?
He's been a complete surprise and an eye opener to a lot of people.
And
Me one.
as yet, very few have figured him out.
Yeah, they can't.
Till this day, very few have figured him out. And you will not hear on mainstream media of all the success that he's had.
No.
But trust me, folks, do a little digging. Think about it with an open mind, and you'll realize he's had a lot of
That's right.
success
He has.
Definitely.
in terms of doing what he said he would do.
Some
Now,
of
he
the
hadn't gotten it
action-
all done. He hadn't built the wall. He hadn't,
Yeah.
he hadn't deported all of the illegals. He hadn't done all of these, so, nah, 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 nah. No, he's greatly improved the economy. He's brought millions of jobs back into the United States. He has dealt with a lot of very sour-pussed, aggravated, almost to the point, if you ask me, treasonous pushback, not only from the citizens, but from people in politics
Congress.
who still are upset that he won.
That's right.
They still can't figure out how he won.
Yeah.
You know, I saw a clip which was a roast. There used to be things on televisions called roasts, and Dean Martin hosted
Oh,
a
yeah,
roast.
yeah. Oh, those
Yeah.
are always
I
fun.
remember.
There was a roast of Ronald Reagan
That
when
was
Ronald Reagan had
funny.
become governor, and Don Rickles was talking about Ronald Reagan. So, I mean, they were all they were poking fun at him.
It was
just
amazing show.
unmerciful.
Yeah.
And the very last thing Rickles said was he Rickles said, "Okay, we have all come together. We are one nation. We're not black. We're not white. We're not Republican. We're not Democrat. We're all unified behind one major thing. Trying to figure out how you won." Talking to Reagan, and that made me laugh. That was a long time ago, but totally appropriate, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know. Anyway, the idea is that we, just like, but somewhat like the rest of the country, but not all of it, obviously. When Mr. Trump won, we became Americans, as we always have been, and he is the president of the United States.
That's right.
Not everybody in this country accepted that
Yeah.
by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
And that's what the last few shows have been about, you know, and will continue to be into year 5, and we will continue to. I was at a family event this weekend. Let me just say that I'm not too, and one of my family members, a younger family member, is very much in the other camp, and we are very, very close. But this individual just said, "Sorry, I cannot listen to your show. He is such a racist." And I said, you know, and then I was told, "We're not going to talk about it." That's fine. I don't want to talk about it. But he is such a racist. That's all I heard.
oh, he talking about Donald Trump.
Talking about Trump.
Wow.
That's all I heard. That was the only. That was it. It was
Nothing
like,
else. Yeah, no.
and this is somebody that I've known for
They were,
their entire life. Oh,
They were a
tiny
baby,
baby,
right? Yeah.
and had tons of interaction with. We're close. Complete zombie, and in the millennial category. It is what it is. I mean, you know, but her business, what she does, right until then, I don't know whether either one of you noticed it or not, but until I did that, I didn't use even a sex in reference.
You didn't. Yes.
I was
And
very good about it.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So the world that, you know, that she lives in is completely that way.
Yeah.
We did have a chat, and some adjustments were made. That it's a bigger world than that
Yeah.
for both of us. And what I keep trying to say, and I will continue to say to the audience and Knucklebachi, and agree, and we all work real hard to do it, is we try to connect dots. We try to bring people together. We're not, you know, jump up and down, redneck, cowboy, you know. It's not my way or the highway.
That's right.
I know I may sound like it is sometimes, and on certain issues, that is the case.
But when you deal with facts like Doc does, you can't go wrong. You may not,
That's true.
your audience may not accept you, but you cannot go wrong.
Then you got to refer back to Dinesh's saying.
Dinesh's famous saying that is surefire quotes for us.
That's right.
Go.
You're entitled to your own opinions, but not your own facts.
There you go.
Right.
That's the
Absolutely.
fact, Jack.
Right.
That's right.
But the other side doesn't get, they get, and that was something Ronald Reagan always said. It's not that the other side is stupid or ill-informed. It's that so much of what they know is not a fact. But it's given to them as if it's a fact.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's like the current deal with taking down all of the statues.
Mm-hmm.
And folks, we're going to get into that. I'm giving you a breather tonight.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot more on that.
We're going to be getting into that and telling you what we're doing locally and, giving you some facts. As I found out today, do you know who put, Uncle Bachi does because we were having a conversation. Do you know who put up the most statues of Robert E. Lee in the United States of America? What president authorized, certified, and promoted these statues of Robert E. Lee around the country? Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 1936.
That's
Democrat.
because he was a racist.
Exactly.
I'm sorry,
But-
I just had to blurt that out.
Democrat,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, you say it like, doesn't everybody know that? No, not everybody knows that.
No, I know. I
Okay.
know.
But that's exactly right. And so it's kind of funny. Maybe that was done so they could be taken down
Yeah, it was a
and
wedge.
continue to wipe out the fact that the slavery that so many of the young people are opposed to, the racism that so many of the young people, as we call them, snowflakes, are upset by. Do you not understand that all of that was created, supported, and promoted by Democrats?
That's right.
Do you not know that to be a fact?
That is a fact. That's why we try to teach truth in history.
The other thing that we know about liberals is you can be absolutely dead ass assured that whatever the Republican conservative side is accused of, they're guilty of.
They're guilty of.
At
Exactly.
that exact
Very
point
astute.
in time.
You're absolutely astute. Yes,
If they're calling you a racist, you're talking to a racist.
that's correct.
That's the way I look at it.
That
That's
true.
terrible.
perfect.
I've
I know
heard
it's
that.
terrible, but it is the truth.
Yep.
You want to know? Yeah, you want to know what the Democrats are guilty of? Listen
what
to
they're
what they're
accusing.
saying
Right.
and what they're accusing other people of doing.
Right.
That's what they do.
I don't get that.
Can I make just go back to Donald Trump just for 1 second?
Yes.
Okay? Because you were talking about his successes. The areas that Donald Trump, and this is just my opinion, the areas that Donald Trump has not succeeded in yet, guess who's not behind them? The feckless
The Republican-
Congress.
Well-
both the Democrats and the Republicans.
So you can't blame it on the Democrats because they're not supposed to be. You got to blame it on the Republicans.
Blame it on the Republicans, but they're
that is their
feckless.
job.
That's right.
He's the commander-in-chief of the Army. He's also supposed to be the commander-in-chief of the Republican Party. That's why he's talking about running as an independent in 2020.
Ditch Mitch. Go ahead.
You follow me? He's talking about being an independent in 2020 to get the Republican Party in line. You guys either follow me, like it or not, I'm the spearhead, or I'll do it without you. Right, Bocce?
That's right.
So it's going to be fun. We'll be right here reporting on it
Yep.
and feeding you background information to help you understand the events of the day. That's the job. And I'm going to say it one more time. What have I got, about 15 seconds?
You have a little bit more.
Okay. Alma, Uncle Bachi, thank you. Fabulous job. Everybody out there on the internet envies the way we do our show.
Yeah.
They totally do. They're like, one man. They do a great job. I could name a bunch of them off. But none of them has a team approach that we decided to take about. Front row. Time to go. You have been listening to the Doc Owen Show. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Now go out there this week and take care, pay attention, and God bless.
Bye-bye, folks. God bless.